gonna put it out there that I think 2024 is not going to be so subtle. I truly believe it's going to be one for the history books, not in a fear-based kind of way. And it's finally going to get things shift in the move. The feminine energy is really going to hit hard, and the masculine energy that's held on is they're not going to like it. There's people who are not going to want to let go of that.
No, the rich and powerful never do.
Enjoy this Wild Soul Gathering production. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie. Pour yourself a really tall glass of spiritual curiosity and join me for the Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. In the spirit of happy hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and perhaps an aha moment that may change your life. Hi, I want to welcome Mark Robinson back to the show. Mark, I feel like you are the original modern-day spirit quester. You're a sage, you're an author, you're a medical intuitive. There's so many different things you do. We're going to have a great show today. We're going to be talking about 2024 and sort of what to expect this year. 2023 has been a big year, but 2024 is going to be one for the history books. And you and I think we'll have some insights on that. But before we get started into our 2024 insights and beyond, because it's not just 2024, I want to thank all the happy hour for the spiritually curious listeners out there, all of you folks from the 21 different countries. I just love that we have such a global community. It excites me, and it lets me know that we're all one, and that, you know, it's great. It feels really good. And also, before we get started, I would like to make a toast. And I did bring a beverage with me to make my toast for this. I would like to make a toast for our top 3 shows of 2023. So, Mark, I won't have you guess what they may have been. I'm going to just shout them out. Number 1 was Melissa Bell, my spiritual being, a spiritual being on a human experience, keeping in touch with the other side. I have to say, no surprise that was number 1. Melissa was so fun. She talked a lot about 2023. AI, a lot of different things, and it was just a fun show. Her energy and her humor definitely engaged a lot of people. Number 2 was Mary Armendariz, and her show was Do You Feel Guilt, Shame, or Blame? Take Your Power Back. What a timely topic. Mary was such high energy. I won't say was, she is. She gave actually very actionable tools on the show for people to use. And she really had a powerful story to share. And number 3, I had a laugh, is Joe Jories. He is our, I don't even know how to describe Joe. He is our tarot expert, and he did a show with me on the tarot as a spiritual tool and how to use that. Honestly, I could just talk to Joe all day. He is just he has so much knowledge, and it's so interesting how he puts it all together. And also, I want to give a big shout out and a cheers to Brittany Urbanski. So Brittany did a show, one of our first shows, I think, probably one of our first 10 shows on yoga, and is helping someone a disservice to them. And Brittany's show still is off the charts, our number 1 show by a mile. So I did want to throw that out there because she is still leading the pack with that. And she does end the show with a very powerful message on helping people and answering that question, is it a disservice to them? So if anyone wants to listen to any of these shows, I'm sure you'll get a lot of insights to that. So Mark, I don't know if you brought a drink with you, but cheers.
Favorite beverage. Cheers to you. Clink.
Yeah. And here's to all our wonderful guests.
And may they all come back in 2024.
I think that once you make these types of connections, that they're just always there. So the reason that we're taping today's show, of course, there's many reasons we're taking it, but back in March, you and I recorded a show called The Apocalypse Has Arrived, Welcome to the New Earth. And you and I talked, I think it was back in November. We were sort of catching up on things. And I think you were out on the beach on your bench, and I was out walking in the back on my new bench in the foothills of Appalachia here at Wild Soul Gatherings. And I told you that I was amazed that that show had hit #1 for November, that there was a lot of listeners going back to that March show and listening to it again. So we did have sort of an interesting discussion about what it was about the show that all of a sudden was bringing people in. And I think part of the uptick of the listens where there's a lot of talk because we have the solstice, which just happened, and we have 2024, which is around the corner, and there's a lot of energy going on. There's a lot of astrology. There's a lot of people who truly have a lot to say on the topic. So we talked about it, and we thought it was time to sort of regroup ourselves and do a show on that and sort of give our insights into how that all tied together and how to prepare for these next steps. You're on.
I think it's a little interesting that there was some lag time between the time the show was released and when people really started uh, tuning in and listening to it. And I think that's because everything that we said at that time needed to be played out. And I think as more and more of this is playing out, it's waking up more and more people who want to know why and what's happening and what they can do. So as this ramps up, more and more people are going to be tuning in, and 24 is going to be nothing like 23. I think the numbers are just going to go exponential about uh, the awakening and curiosity about it. So hopefully, what we provide today is going to answer a lot of questions to those souls that this is all new to.
Well, it's interesting. And, I've had this drive to do this whole Wild Souls gathering, do the retreat. And then out of the clear blue back in 21, 22, I think it was 22 to do this podcast, right? Which definitely wasn't in my willed house. It was definitely a very clear direction from spirit. And, I, as I usually do, push back a little bit in the beginning, and I pushed back pretty hard and, I had a little tantrum about it with spirit and then just jumped on the wagon. And it has turned out to be incredibly successful in so many ways. So what's interesting about it is I think this all leads up to this moment that we're in right now or approaching. I feel like we're in it, and it's going to take off like gangbusters, right? So we had talked about the solar flares, maybe back in those shows, but we had a show about that earlier, I think last spring, and the power of the solar flares. And when you look at the science of it and what's going on in the universe and everything, we've not seen the sun circling around and shooting off the intensity of these flares. And it's moved up in time. So they had this mapped out to happen over a couple of years. And then we got a year ahead of it. And with this solstice and this energy that's coming in, it's all about people awakening. So what's going to happen now with the solstice and what's been happening, but really the big thing with this is masses, and I mean masses of people are going to awaken. They're not even going to be able to language it. Well, I can't language it myself half the time. We always talk about we need a new language for this paradigm, right? There may not be a lot of understanding with it, or what this feeling is and what it means and what's going to be happening with it, but it's here. And we've been preparing, you and I and many, many other spiritual leaders out there, for this for a very, very long time. And the time has come. Your thoughts on that?
It's just becoming more and more intense as we move along this progression of awakening. And the solar flares that we were aware of and we talked about in the spring were nothing to compare to what's been released in the past month. Um, I know it can affect you one way or the other. Either it's fueling you with energy or it's sending you to bed for hours at a time because you just don't have any energy left. You seem to be the lucky one being energized, and I'm the one who sleep my days away. But solar flares are rated much like earthquakes are. Now, forgive me if I get this wrong, but I think most of the solar flares in the spring were X rated as X. And for solar flares, they were pretty powerful. But
Hmm.
now in December, all these solar flares are up like M scale, and they're rated kind of like an earthquake. You know, a 6 point earth or a six earthquake versus a 6.1 is 10 times stronger than the six. Well, solar flares are rated like earthquakes. So if you're going from an X to an M, we're going exponential up 9 or 10 times that number. So this is like nothing the Earth plane has ever seen before. And it's really having a powerful effect on people. And I was going to wait for later to introduce this idea, but I'm going to introduce it now. I believe that we are genetically imprinted, or better word yet, genetically coded from all the galactics over the times that have stepped in to help move the human race forward. And that coding has been lying dormant in us. And part of this awakening is being facilitated by these solar flares that is waking up this coding that's been in us all along. So you wake up one morning and suddenly you're in a whole new place with a lot more information to work with.
You're spot on. So I've talked many times on the podcast. I bring up mastering alchemy. I am studying this mastering alchemy under Jim Self. So a lot of this is rewiring the body. I know Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden. There's a number of people out there in the science community who talk about it. Jim is a little different with his. He brings it in through the archangels and the lords of light and that kind of thing. And it's really turning us back on to our true selves and getting the physical body prepared to be able to embrace all of this light, right? So we're getting into our crystalline, our light bodies, our bodies are getting lighter, but it's just what you said. So with this coding, and as we're turning on all these different synapses, we're getting to know our true selves, and there's a lot of wisdom that comes with it. I was listening to Jim talk this weekend, and it was really interesting. He was talking a lot about 2024 and his thoughts and, what to expect and what's coming down the road. And he goes, "Well, I'm not into astrology, it's a science, it's not my thing." He goes, "But I know a lot of astrologers, and more recently, I've been very interested in listening to what they have to say. And what I find fascinating is what the astrologers are saying based on the way the planets and everything are aligning absolutely add up 100% with what he is saying." So he's coming from a whole different realm of wisdom and information. What's fascinating to me are all these different modalities are lining up, especially for 2024. A lot of talk about April, a lot of talk about April 8th, a lot of talk about November. It's 2024 is going to be one for the history books. And when I say that, the thing that's interesting is there's going to be a lot of uncomfortableness this year, but there's also going to be a lot of new, beautiful things that are going to come to light, be invented, be brought in. People talk about AI, and of course, there's people can use it for the greater good, or people can use it for greed. So it's filtering through that, but it's all changing our world as we know it. And there's a lot of positive things that'll be coming with that. Are there going to be more wars in 2024? Absolutely, without a doubt. I think with those wars, though, there's going to be some very unintended consequences. I've heard other people also talk about that, both in the astrology world and some of the other worlds, that are going to end up being unexpectedly positive in ways that we don't know. So it's all, we've talked about this repeatedly. You talk about it, and I'll let you jump in here. 2024 is it, man. The old is breaking down. And if you don't want to let go, if you don't want to let go of your third dimensional self, if you want to stay in this linear past, present, future, straight line kind of thing, it's not going to be so comfortable for you. If you can stay a spectator, and I'll say this for you, but for many of the listeners, turn the TV off. Life will be much easier. As I've done a lot of my, I'll say it's spiritual growth, one of the things that I've noticed with my change, like I'm the person who would jump in the car, blast the radio, like nothing was better than driving fast, perhaps with the radio blaring. Like I don't listen. I realize now that I don't even turn the radio on in the car. I don't have I don't have a TV because I choose not to have a TV. I don't have a lot of noise or radio. Like I decided, like it was like a very conscious effort to put on Christmas music, which I will have to say I enjoyed. But if people who know me, and I know that you can attest to this, like I was a rabid football fan. Like I lived for football. I lived for my Cleveland Browns. I haven't watched a football game in 2 years. And I can't explain that because I was so passionate about it. Like it was my life. I easily could wake up and start watching football on Sunday at 10:30 when I was on the reservations and watch it till midnight and think that was a good day. So it's interesting how things have shifted.
Yeah, and you're going to be happy to hear that I am clicking off the news more and more, or actually not even turning it on, because surprisingly, in the past couple months, I've just lost interest in it. It just doesn't seem important to me and where I'm at and where I'm going. And I find it ridiculous, number one, and trite. It all just seems so petty, and it's not where I'm at. And I'm before I thought it entertaining, now it's just boring. So much better things to do than that. And even sitting at the beach, I notice for my sunsets, which I love, is I don't pick up the phone to distract me. The phone just sits next to me while I gaze into that beautiful sky turning brilliant colors. It's more, I find myself going in more than what I did before. You put out a lot of stuff right there, and let me see if I can comment to some of it. Um, you and I were so excited in the spring with all these new energies coming in on every level, and I know you and I are both eager to have this over and done with. It's like, why isn't this happening? The energy's there. Um, and months went by, and we realized that uh, there's a timing and a process to this. It's like slow cooking. It just can't happen overnight. It would be okay for people like you and I, but for most of the souls on the planet, they need to go from A, B, C, and D before they can get to Z. So it's that process of letting go and stepping back for me to let it all play out perfectly. And a lot of what we thought was going to happen happened, but not in the big way that we thought it would. It's happening a slow and on different and surprising directions. Um, but the energies are there and it is playing out. And there's no doubt in my mind that it's going to continue this way. Now, before this podcast is over, we're going to dive into 2024, and you and I are going to be just as excited about all the possibilities. But again, at this point, I'm not anticipating anything cataclysmic, that's going to rattle the earth overnight and change things. Things are building up. The pressure is building up. The energy is building up. It's simmering and starting to boil, but it still needs to cook for a while. Now, in 2024, with all the energies that are going to hit us, I think it's going to just exacerbate the polarity between the positive and the negative, the light and the dark. And I'm taking a new look on that. All this dark energy that the light has exposed is going to continue to be exposed, and it's going to look scarier and scarier to the untrained naked eye.
I
But it's
agree.
it's facilitating an opportunity for all of these souls to awaken and make a choice. How can they make a choice for the positive and evolution if they don't know what the possibility is if they don't? I think as the darkness gets exposed, and it's to most, wars are created and facilitated by that 1 to 10% of the rich and the powerful. The other 90% of the population wants nothing to do with war, truly. Well, in a small way, we support that 10% that's actively engaging it because it suits their purpose. I think the other 90% are getting to that point where they're waking up and they're going to make a choice that on the level that they have power, that they're not going to put the energy into it. And the first thing that comes to my mind is they're going to think more about who they put in elected offices. At least in America, that's where our power is. Um, Instead of basing their votes on personal reasons, I think they're going to start seeing the bigger picture and how it affects the planet, and they're going to make different choices than what they had in the past. So the darkness, is it a bad thing? No, it's all good. It's just, and its purpose is to wake people up to what they need to choose against. Does
Well,
that sound right grammatically? Choose against, make alternative choices.
yeah, that makes sense. Um, I'm just going to put it out there. I don't believe the 2024 presidential election in the United States is going to happen. There's a lot of focus on the United States from an astrological standpoint, and I'll let the astrologers get into it. I'll let the listeners delve into that a little bit. I have a strong belief about that. But you talked about the fire within and the earthquake and the shaking up. And I just want to say that with all of this energy and the way these planets are aligning in different things, and I'm not in astrology. I know enough to like get me in trouble, right? So I listen to it and I look into it and it makes sense. But there's when different planets, I guess, line up and things happen, it promotes earthquakes and stuff over that area. So what I will say is there's been a significant amount of earthquakes in 2023, some big ones that, hit over in China and the minor Asia countries. And when you were talking about the fire in the earth, all I could think of is like Iceland is like spewing fire out of the earth as we speak. Like this isn't just some physical example or what's the word I want to use? Philosophical example that you were using as you were speaking. I was like, this is actually physically happening with the Earth right now. So the geomagnetics and these solar flares and the shifting, and then how the astrological planet influences all those solar different poles. There's a lot happening with the earth. So when we talked about the apocalypse has happened. Welcome to New Earth. It was a positive thing. People many times think of the apocalypse as a negative, and that all comes historically from when religious leaders and political leaders were all the same, back hundreds of years ago.
You
I'm
know,
trying I was going to say something and I thought just don't even go there. But the big event in March was that cracking of the veil. It was Heaven's Cross. So that was the first time that that's happened. Where a lot of the things when we came down here to play this game on Earth that keeps us separated from the rest of the universe, our true selves, the energies with it, it's opening, it's softening, it's allowing us to see on the other side. And like you said, man, I was so pumped up. Like I was so pumped up. I I just knew that this was a big thing. But you're right, and I well, you know what? I was a little bit disappointed. I guess disappointed's not a good word. It sort of doesn't fit in my existence anymore. But I was like, I guess it's what you said. Well, it looks like the big stuff's not going to happen, and it's going to be more subtle type of energy. But I am gonna put it out there that I think 2024 is not going to be so subtle. I truly believe it's going to be one for the history books, not in a fear-based kind of way. And it's finally going to get things shift in the move. The feminine energy is really going to hit hard, and the masculine energy that's held on for all of these thousands, hundreds of years is they're not going to like it. There's people who are not going to want to let go of that.
no, the rich and powerful never do. About a month ago, you told me uh, that there was going to be a shift with the solstice
Mm.
in December, and that was last week, I believe, on the around the 21st, 22nd.
20, 21st. It was the 21st, yeah. It was,
It depends on.
honestly, to me, it was like the beginning of the new earth happening. So it is a big shift into the
Let's
feminine.
refresh my memory. How that is going to play into awakening the feminine energy on the planet.
So this is a big solstice. There's always a lot of big energy with either of the solstices. And the way this is lining up is we're going to get a big shot of feminine energy, and the feminine energy is going to come in and start to take hold. We're going to feel it in ourselves as individuals because we're all feminine and masculine. The goal is really to be balanced, not
Yeah.
to be all feminine and not to be all masculine. Things are so dominated so far on the other end with the masculine energy that we're going to see some heavy injections of this feminine energy, and we're going to see it in our politics, we're going to see it in our finances, we're going to see it in every area of life because that's part of the shift into this new world. And the solstice was a big opening of that injecting in.
Okay. Well, yes, over the eons, power has shifted, or female first, I believe, male, and
Hmm.
I think the pendulum isn't going to swing all the way back this time. I think with the new energies and the new Earth, there's finally going to be a balance point established between the two energies. I think that's part of what the new Earth is about.
Yeah, it's balance and harmony, but just injecting it in, there's going to be that push that we don't like it. We're going to probably see a lot in January, that first 6 months of the year, um, with
Yeah.
a big noticeable injection of the feminine energy,
Yeah.
and globally.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of female women issues have come up in 2023. And what I've witnessed is women coming together to reclaim their power and not let themselves be victimized by the male power struggle anymore. And that is happening in many countries across the world. So if that's the future and it's going to exacerbate's not a good word. If it's going to continue to increase, I'm all for it. I'm eager to see it happen. I think it needs to happen.
Yeah, I know we did, I think, talk on a show, and when we were there at that time, there were literally protests all over the world in different areas at that time, in Europe and France and Israel and the United States and the UK.
It seems like the
I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember what the issue was because the issues seem to be coming and going so quickly right now.
women have been victimized in so many ways over the centuries. It's beautiful to see. With let's jump into the in 2024 real
Okay.
fast.
Yeah, no.
First thing that's going to happen, that's going to have a major influence, is the continuation of Pluto moving back into the sign of Aquarius. And that's going to happen on January 20th. And that Aquarian energy that planet Pluto is going to bring to the surface is all about freedom, technology, revolution, and social activism. So the women's movement, no matter where it is really going to be supported by these energies coming up in January. And that energy is going to be in place all the way until September 1st, where it's going to disappear for a couple of months. But then come the end of November, it's going to be a major player again until 2044. So
Oh.
if the women are going to be at the forefront of the transformation on the planet, I think that's a good thing.
So you said 2044, and if you can remind the listeners and myself, from the harmonic convergence in the 21 years, 21 years, 21 years, isn't 2044 when everything is tied up and we're sailing along in the new world? Or am I making that up? Because, I want this to happen in 2025.
Oh my gosh, I'd have to look back on my notes. That seemed like that was so far away. We did, you and I, we did figure out the chronology of that and got some specific years for it. I think if you reference it to the harmonic convergence, we're at the end of it now in 24, 25, 26. But that harmonic of convergence was all about establishing the transition between the old energy, the Piscean age, and the new energy, the Aquarian age. And as we witness this year, it's a slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. So that energy is getting us into the Aquarian age. And once we're in there in 25, 26, then we have another decade or so to really watch it manifest. And we need that energy, that transformation energy of that Pluto in Aquarius. It's all about transition, social activism, uh, and revolution. So it's going to play out in a really big way. It's once that dark energy is can't think of any other word but beaten back. Um, it's going to take a while to reinvent the world in a much more balanced way between the male and the female.
So, that being said, as you were talking, and that was a perfect segue into what I was thinking, is we talk a lot about transformation and our transformation and growing and different things. I have I have come I've come to the aha currently that we're not transforming, but we're transmutating.
Oh
What do
my,
you what do you
yes.
think about that?
Well, you can see
I
I
mean,
got very
I'm like
yeah.
I really think we're going through a transmutation, not a transformation. We're
I would,
transmuting the planet, we're transmuting the human species
yes.
for the future. Like we are part of doing this. Go ahead, I'll let you talk.
I
Sorry.
was listening to somebody and they were talking about the caterpillar into the butterfly thing, which is the ultimate metaphor, but for transformation. And being a person with a healthy science background, I was embarrassed to realize I didn't quite understand exactly how that happened. When the caterpillar weaves that chalice around them, the it's not chalice,
Cocoon?
it's close to that. There's a scientific word for it, where they go into hibernation and they come out the butterfly. What actually happens inside that is that caterpillar actually liquefies
Really?
before it starts to reconstruct itself as a butterfly. So that truly is a transmutation. You know, one thing disappearing and then reemerging as something totally different. A worm to something who can fly. I mean, how different is that? And I started to look at this transition and the human race, and I thought, oh my gosh, yes, we're in this new age, and this is a huge evolutionary leap for mankind. Of course, we are going to be something other than what we were. You know, it may still look like a human with head, torso, arms, and legs, but I think what they encapsulate is going to be something totally different.
Well, it could be, and I mean, I don't know. It's interesting doing a show with a beer versus a cup of tea. I'm used to a warm cup of tea for my throat, but maybe I'll have to try the beer more often. Um, Now I'm going to go back to what was it you just said?
Transmutation,
Yeah.
caterpillar into a butterfly,
Oh, so
and
this is so you said you don't know. So it'll be interesting to see where we end up. And when you said a worm that could fly, I guess I really never thought about it in that detail before. But how about if the transmutation takes us back to our original being? You know, before we became so dense,
wow, that's really profound. Um,
because we were very evolved at one time. We just became very unevolved.
my knee-jerk reaction was to say no, we never move backwards, we're always moving forward. Um, but if you want to get truly spiritual about it, we're here to remember, and remembering implies that we once were.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Know yourself. That message has been like coming through to me so many times and so clear of the recent times. It's time to know yourself.
yeah, and I'm liking it more and more. This, you know, you and I kept expecting big things to happen on the global plane that was going to transform the world, but I have to say, or admit, share, 2023 was a really difficult year for me, and it brought up a lot of stuff that I needed to deal with that I didn't even know was still there. And it was a tremendous opportunity to let go and put into my consciousness what I wanted to create in me, in my future.
Wow, that's
And
really interesting. I lost your video for a second. Did you hit a button?
yeah, that's been happening with you. I think I keep getting the messages when your internet improves.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So we're there. We're just not seeing each other. Good
yeah,
to
so
know. I'm
if
sorry. I didn't mean
they're
to
inter
interrupt.
yeah, so even when your image disappears, I keep talking because I know you're there.
Oh, how
Okay.
nice. Well, I'm going to agree with you, Mark, but in a different kind of way. So, as you know, this year has turned out to be one for the books for me in ways that I didn't expect, but I guess maybe I should have expected things that needed to happen. Thus, the little pause in the podcasts and stuff getting back on track. But what I realized as I've evolved, transformed, transmutated, whatever it is I'm doing, I do think that honestly we're transmutating. I feel pretty strong about that at this time. When I look back at how, I ponder a lot and I think how I would have managed this or handled this years ago, even a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, would have been so different. So, despite the intensity of the situation, I had peace throughout most of it and was able to maintain on a positive note, if that makes sense. Where, me decades ago would have been in some kind of like really bad
Um,
death spot. Yeah, it would have not been a good situation. And so when I thought about it, and I thought, well, this was really a good example of how I have grown and evolved and, able to get myself back on track with things. So it's a beautiful thing. And I never let go of my personal work or my spiritual work. And in fact, I moved more into it.
yeah.
So there was a reason for all of it, right?
Well, I'm going to reframe that a little bit and then share something with you.
Okay.
Um, as we evolve into our higher consciousness, oh, I use the word consciousness. I don't know if that even applies anymore. It's more getting out of our head and into our heart space. The new earth is all about living through your heart, not your head. Getting out of your consciousness and getting into your emotions. As I worked through my stuff and transmute it this year, I found myself in a much more peaceful place, like you just described. And that's because I'm not that much in my head anymore. And this is probably why I pulled away from watching the news, because it's just not this intellectual volleyball game going back and forth anymore. I seem to be more in a heart place. I'm more peaceful, I'm more accepting, I'm less judgmental, and I'm feeling it. It's all right here. I'm feeling that love for myself and for the world around me and the people that could piss me off.
Well, that's an honest statement. I love it.
You know, we're out of this plane. We have egos and it's there. But when it happens, I'm very quickly in a much different place than what I would have been 5, 10 years ago. So I mean that's how I can gauge my progress.
I love it, and it is from the heart. There's a lot out there on manifesting. We are creators. That's what we're here to create, and it seems so easy, and it is so easy, but it's not because we create things that we don't think of, right? So this is sort of funny. With Southwest, I finally got my companion pass. So I manifested this. Like this was something that I wanted and it was there and I was really excited when I got it, but I didn't manifest the companion to go with the companion pass, right? So like you have to think these things through.
Be
But
specific.
be specific, but to create through the heart and not to the head. So when you said consciousness, that you didn't think consciousness even existed, it wasn't right. What I would say is you moved out of, so I believe consciousness is very much there and a very big player in the game. In fact, I believe it's wild card. So I call it the mental emotional mind. It's getting out of here and into here. So I don't see this as my consciousness. This is just that mental emotional mind dimension that I've really worked real hard in my coding to recode out and have this be the major player in the game in the coding. So it's interesting with the consciousness. I had to bring her up. I love Pam Gregory. She's an astrologer.
And I was going to do that too.
You're probably like, it's taken you this long to bring it up. So she just
What
is a
I'm going to say.
fascinating lady, and I'm going to have her on the show one day. Like it's happening. But she is like a very, very gifted astrologer who has really dedicated her life to the craft to a level that is so far beyond. She's like a physicist when it comes to astrology, right? So she was talking, and this really it just hit home with me, and I've not been able to let go of it, and this is positive. So she says that the wild card and everything that's happening that makes us different than all of the eons that you can go back with astrology, because she looks at the historical, like what was happening at this time when these planets aligned before, right? So right now, the alignment you talked about, revolution, matches the French Revolution. So that was the same planetary alignment. She says, what's different now that's never been out there before is consciousness is raised to a new level. And the consciousness trumps the astrology. And I don't know what that looks like. And I thought, wow, that was really powerful,
Yeah,
especially coming from her.
earlier I said it's a done deal, this transformation and moving into the Aquarian age, and we just need to lay back and play it out. And you keep insisting, no, it's not a done deal. We still need to be working on this. And I've been swaying towards that. And what you just said right now, that is the wild card. That is what it's all depending on. So absolutely right.
So
Now,
for me, a done deal means what's the point in doing it if it's a done
my,
deal? Now, there are events that are happening that are play into the game, and we're on the game board, but all of the outcomes,
yeah, so that's what makes it exciting to be here.
yeah.
So while we're still on the subject of Pam Gregory, I want to applaud her in instigating a global meditation
Oh, yeah.
on Sundays uh, at a certain time. And I
Two
know
o'clock.
there's
Well,
well,
it depends where
yeah,
you live. We
all
have
over the
21 countries listening.
so you need to figure out, whoever's listening, you need to figure out the time yourself, because this is a global meditation. So Pam Gregory's in England, and she tried to uh, um, accommodate all of her listeners, or as many as she could. So she chose 7 o'clock p.m. Um, England time, whatever that's called. So you and I live in Eastern Standard Time, so for us it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is very convenient for me. Thank you, Pam. But the reason why I bring it up, it applies to that head versus heart, conscious versus emotion. So and then the meditation is all about bringing in the new earth. And that's all about love, compassion, etc. So in my first meditations, I was thinking about everything. I was thinking about the new earth. I was thinking about being love and compassionate. I was thinking about that facilitating peace everywhere. Thinking, thinking, thinking. Okay. nothing new there. I've done that for decades. The third meditation, and I have to say, there are so many people meditating that you can feel the energy. It's like diving into a river with a strong current. Once you get into your meditative place, you are just taken away with it. I love it. And as that was happening, I realized that I needed to get out of my head. If the new earth is all about being in a place of love and letting go of everything and just being emotionally present, I took the focus out of my head and all the thoughts that went along with it, and I lowered it to my chest and to my heart. And what a game changer. And for everybody out there who meditates and they struggle with their wild mind, my old yoga teachers used to say, your mind was like a team of wild horses out of control, running in every different direction. Just let your thoughts run freely. When you take your focus out of your head and put it down into your chest, into your heart, those thoughts disappear because your heart doesn't think. Your brain thinks. It's an organ separate. It's not you. What is really your energetic center is your heart. Think about the chakra system. Your heart chakra is the one in the middle. We are heart beings. We are love. And when you put your focus there, it's all about motion. It's about feeling. So for all the listeners out there, get into your feeling about this. And not only when you meditate, in your everyday life, get out of that noise in your head and the brainwashing that you still are holding on to, and your judgments, especially about yourself, and just start loving it all. And it's one of
Especially
the
yourself.
yeah, it's one of the things that's going on in my life recently that has really elevated my everyday experience on the earth plane to something much more positive and peaceful than it ever was before. So let's thank you, Pam. You're a wonderful lady. We appreciate what you're doing.
Definitely, and it's 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes out of your day. Sometimes you get in the zone, though, and it
Once a week.
ends up being, yeah, once a week, 15 minutes. And the whole purpose of it is to elevate the consciousness of humanity.
That's what it is. Because it has that snowball effect. The more souls that are awakening and putting out this energy of love and light, it's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And you can witness that because that light and love is illuminating all this darkness. So, it's a good thing. Everything that you see in the news if you watch. um,
Oh, Mark.
it's always been there. It's nothing new. We've just lit it up and exposed it. And now that we've exposed it, again, going back, we can choose to make a different decision with our power. So it's truly all good.
Yeah, we have more power and control than we allow ourselves to believe,
Okay. Well,
especially
Sandra,
with that.
I'm watching the clock, and this podcast is all about what's going to happen in 2024. I want to hit some benchmark points that we can talk about
Go
uh,
for it.
before we conclude. So, the first couple of weeks in January is going to be slow, same old, same old. But watch after January 20th uh, that things are going to start speeding up pretty fast. And that's one of the hallmarks of 2024 is that time is accelerating and this is going to start playing out much faster. But the big month in 2024 is April. There is going to be, and there's lots of things going on in April on all levels. But the one I'm going to talk about right now for the United States is there's a solar eclipse on the 8th. I wrote it down somewhere.
April 8th.
Yeah, April 8th. Okay. Oh, yeah, there it is. And it's going to complement the solar eclipse that we just had in October. So the solar eclipse we had in October was visible in the United States. And wherever it's visible, it's more powerful. And that solar eclipse was visible from the northwest, from like Seattle down to the Florida Panhandle. So it went diagonally from west to east, north and south. I'm sorry, folks, I'm dyslexic. I have to think that out. Well, this one is going to be just the opposite in April. It's going to be visible from New England and cross the United States towards Arizona, Mexico. So why that is significant is that at some point, the paths of those two solar eclipses are going to have an intersection point. And that
Ooh.
intersection point is over the state of Texas. So come April or soon after, expect something extraordinary in one way or the other to happen in Texas that is going to have an effect in the whole country. And of course, whatever happens in the United States has a ripple effect around the globe. So that's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Now, this Pluto moving into Aquarius that we talked about of on January 20th, it's going to retrograde back into Capricorn for almost 2 months, not quite, starting September 1st until the end of October. So we're going to be moving backwards again. And I see that as those dark energies are going to give one last huge attempt of maintaining their power and control. But then Pluto goes back into Aquarius by November, and it's there until 2024. And I think in that 15, well, how many years would that be? Almost 20 years, a lot of change is going to happen. And I think everybody who's listening is going to be around for 2044. So that's, for me, that's the big take on the year. Now, again, things are going to speed up, but things are going to continue to play out. There's going to be more polarization between the light and the dark. Like you said, this is going to be a year for the history books that people are going to remember because it's going to be much like 1968 in the 60s. I mean, that was a year everybody remembers. Even if you weren't alive, you know what happens that year. But this is the interesting twist I'm going to throw out for 2024. If you look at it through Chinese astrology, 24 is the year of the dragon. And the dragon is the only mystical animal in the Chinese zodiac. And it has mystical powers. It can fly and breathe fire. And in those communities that follow that astrology, it's the luckiest year. And they intentionally have a lot more children to be born under that side because those children live a life of luck. So I think it's interesting that we have these astrological energies that are going to exacerbate all this polarization between light and dark. But for that same year, if you look at it from a different perspective, it's a really lucky year. And that luck brings power and strength. So who's going to be lucky? The dark side or the love and light side?
Love and light, love and light, love and light. Yes. I agree. It's going to be a fast year, but there's going to be a lot of good. It's just where you sit with it, right?
So that's my take on 2024, except for
Okay,
one more thing.
go ahead.
Everybody across the board keeps bringing up water.
Oh, yes.
And
Well, I
and
will
you
have to tell you, you brought up the dragons. I've had a lot of other people bring up dragons, but go with the water.
you know that there's going to be huge events with water. Um, what can I say? There's been a lot of flooding this year, and not just
Yeah.
in the United States, across the globe. I live in Florida. I've lived here for over 11 years now. For the first 8 years, there was never any unusual water. 2 years ago, we flooded pretty bad, coastal flooding, because a hurricane was off the coast and we got the backside of it pushing the water inland. That had an explanation for it. Well, last week we had coastal flooding again with no warning, just out of the blue. And I think we're going to see a lot more coastal areas being inundated. With climate change and the glaciers melting, it's just inevitable. So instead of visiting wildfold farms, I may be moving there because I live on the beach.
I
And I,
will say you're lucky that you have the highest parking spot in that parking lot where you live. Otherwise, it would have not been a good situation for you. But I'm up in the elevation in the foothills, so you are welcome to come here.
so let's stay on water for a little bit because you said something so profound to me, and I want hopefully you'll remember it and repeat it. It's been proven that water can be imprinted, encoded with ideas and emotions. I've been utilizing that in some of my rituals to let go and empower. And I heard somebody say that the center of the earth is water, and that there's more water in the center of the earth than there is on the surface of the earth. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a geologist. I was brought up thinking that the center of the earth was molten lava. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But the reason why this person was talking about it, it said that water is imprinted with all the wisdom of the universe. And interesting, water isn't native to this planet. Everything on this planet is carbon, held together by carbon bonds. Water is held together by hydrogen bonds. So it had to come from somewhere else. Hmm, makes you think. Where did it come from? What was it imprinted with before it comes to Earth? So I told you that I am being much more thoughtful when I'm drinking water and what it is, because I want that I was imprinting it with my thoughts, bring me prosperity, bring me love, bring me peace. And you said, do you remember?
I do remember what I said. Like, why are you giving directions to water, which has got so much more wisdom and knowledge than you? Just drink the water and say, I accept all that you have to offer me. Like, it was sort of funny to me that you thought you knew more than the water.
So yeah, now when I'm drinking my water, it's like, hey, bless me with your wisdom. And what are we? We are over 90% water. We
Yes, we
can't
are.
live without water, so there
Gosh,
may
there's a couple of people out there that are really doing some interesting research, and I can't think of their names to throw them out there. I know that I know Pam Gregory's very obsessed with the water and the love and the power of it. Water is very, very powerful and is going to play a significant role in all of this change and transmutation and escalation, not only from the flooding and the geological parts, but from the power and nourishment. It's just way more powerful than we think.
it's really got me thinking. And thanks to you,
Yes.
my thoughts have gone to a whole new level about that.
I do remember that conversation when I said that to you. It was like your jaw was on the ground and you were
I
like,
know there's not many times I'm speechless, but when she said that, it was just so thunderstruck with an aha.
yeah.
Uh,
I
I,
was much more profound in however I said it. I do recall that. And it was almost like a channeled message to you. So,
hmm.
knowing that a lot of folks are awakening and a lot of them aren't even going to understand what that means or that's what's happening to them. Your thoughts on how we can best support? people at this time?
Oh, bottom line, love and compassion with everybody. Let go of your judgments of them. Everybody is on their own unique path, getting them to where they need to go. Do they have to do it our way? No. Let them figure it out their own way, and let's scaffold a support system that they can be successful at doing that. I have spent a good part of 2023 writing a book, which I'm like pretty impressed that I did. Writing the book was the easy part, though. Trying to get it published is another thing. But the purpose of my book is to help all these newly awakening souls to process what their experiences are. I want to, it's so different than how we lived most of our lives. And I want them to know that they're not crazy with what's going on in their lives and in their head and in their hearts, and that they're not alone. They're not singular in this, that it's happening to a lot of people. So I have put out in about 300 pages a lifetime of my evolutionary experiences that was unique to me. But I was pretty blessed. It's really covered the spectrum of what's out there. So hopefully they'll be led to my book for an explanation as to what's going on. And of course, I end the book with a whole chapter about the transition and transmutation that we're going through. So once they get in a more loving, light place, that they have some sort of uh, direction or blueprint to make a decision on where to focus their energies in the future. The book went through a couple of different titles, but it eventually being named Escaping the Madness. Uh, with this transition time between the light and the dark energies, it's pretty crazy out there.
Yes. Wow, what a timely title.
I've lived for 60 years, and the past five, seven have been nothing like the first 50 or so. I mean, this is it's pretty crazy. So, and it's not something that we have to be a victim of. I mean, it's our choice. Do we succumb to all this and let it drive us crazy and give us nervous breakdowns and worry and worry and worry and more people worry, worry, worry? All that just feeds the energy of the power structure that's in place. We have the choice to step back and be something other than that. So it's called Escaping Madness with a subtitle of A Journey to Awakening. Because even where we're at, I mean, I still believe we're at the bottom of the mountain.
Oh,
There's
goodness, yes.
a lot to go. Our journeys are just really getting good at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way. They are just getting good. But yes, no, there's so much more, so much
Yeah.
more.
So it's really hard to get picked up by an agent to get a book published. I found out that 90% of the books that are published are self-published. So I have just been doing my research on companies that will help you publish. And when the astrological energies are right, come January, I'm going to pick one of those companies and I'm going to get this book published because I think it's important that it needs to be available this year. And I'm putting out that it needs to be available by April because April is going to be such a powerful month with such a positive effect, waking up all this coding that's buried deep within us, that this book needs to be there for those souls as a tool to get them to move forward and understand what's happening and to move them forward.
I love it. That's uh, what a wonderful gift that will be for so many people. It's interesting when we talk about like how do we support the population where many people are going to be confused or not necessarily understand what it is. It's interesting to me because we have and the name of the podcast is Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. So the word spiritual is in there a lot. So it's sort of like the evolution or transformation, not quite transmutation, but maybe of religion, right? It's totally stepping away from that. I feel like the whole spiritual aspect of as we're evolving, that part of it's going to fade away also as we're evolving and growing into our true selves, our, I was going to say our spiritual selves, but we're going to know more and understand more, and it's going to be big. It's going to be fun because it's so much bigger than we are,
Oh,
right? The
yeah.
collective. But that's what, the podcast is here. A lot of people are establishing different venues and different offerings to support the population. And I agree. And it's interesting the timing of your writing it and getting it out and everything that's happening, right? Coincidence? Not. It's a beautiful thing. It's out there to support. Any last words of wisdom for those listening to this podcast?
Well, not wisdom at the moment, and you can edit this out if you wish. You brought up religion, and I heard something recently that intuitively felt just about right for me. If I were to make a prediction for 2024, I'm going to say that we're going to see a new pope.
Mm.
Um, I found out that the Catholic Church, is hemorrhaging money and they're broke. And it's hard to believe, but it was pointed out that most churches in Europe are now museums. They're not tithing money to Rome anymore. And if the Catholic Church is to survive, which I'm sure that it will, we need a new pope in there that can make decisions to take the church in a different direction. And if I could make another prediction, I'm going to say that that pope is going to embrace women because we're going through all this empowerment for women. That's the future. The church is going to embrace women to be uh, deacons, or what's the word for the person that can serve communion? They're not a priest, but they're
Oh, they can already do that, I think, deacons.
oh, okay.
I
I
mean,
stand.
I don't,
Is
I
it
mean,
true?
I can't really speak to that, but I think that they can. So I'll make a prediction. I believe that religion is going to fade away and not exist on any level. And it's going to happen a lot quicker than people think. And to your point, in Europe, a lot of the places are museums. In the US, like churches on every corner, they're for sale. People
Yeah,
are buying them for businesses, homes.
yeah,
Religion has really, I know it doesn't sound like it if you listen to TV, which you shouldn't. But religion has really lost its stronghold for a long time and has been fading away. And as people come into their own spirituality and knowing themselves, this is part of the big shift is I don't need someone to be an intercedery for me with all that is or whatever it is that you choose to call it. But it's even bigger than that. We don't need people to develop rules and a direction for us. Like we can do that for ourselves. We are our own government and we're evolving into being able to do that. And it applies to religion too. It runs parallel with that. I think that that's part of all of these big, massive, um, uh, male-dominated systems and organizations that have been around controlling for a long time, dissolving and going away. That's my personal thought on that. And no, I'm not going to edit it out. Why would I? It's all part of this, right? The spirituality and religion, I would say, historically go hand in hand, but they have gone down, like there's a fork in the road and the masses are going down a different fork in the road. I mean, that's been very obvious. And if there's this, not if, with this big shift, it's going to be interesting to see what this all looks like. But I think
Yeah.
religion goes away and it fades and it'll be a thing of the past.
Well, if you look at it astrologically, the Piscean age, what they're coming out of, was all about institutionalized religion, power over the people. Well, the Aquarian age is totally different. It's not empowerment for top-down control. It's empowerment for uh, down to up. The people are the ones that are going to hold the power and to uh, create something much different than what religion ever was. So when you look at astrology is energy that is going to support something. And if this energy that has supported the church for 2,500 years is going away, for me, it seems logical that the churches would lose their power and disappear because the astrological energies just aren't there to support them anymore.
And when you talk about truth coming out and things being uncovered, there's been a lot of truth that's come out and uncovered that's not been very positive on that venue, and more of it comes out. Not that, with everything else, there is good work that is done, but there's a lot of things, and it's all part of the deconstruction of it. From my perspective with all of it, it just fits into everything else that's happening with that. And it's going to be replaced with us helping to support people as being their own spiritual self and self-governing. We are more than capable to self-govern ourselves, especially when we come from the heart. The heart. It's all about coming from the heart and compassion. Anything else you'd like to add?
Love and light. Live it.
Oh,
Be it.
beautiful.
Be it.
Once more, say it again.
Love and light. Be it.
That's right. And to all you wild souls out there, I want to thank you so much for joining us and being part of Wild Souls Gathering and Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. We love you. And thank you for joining us. Mark, until next time.
I'll be there for you. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wild Soul Gathering's Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To learn more about our guests, please go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We're very eager to hear from our listeners what you thought of the episode, topics you might like us to cover in the future, your thoughts on spirituality, questions you may have. Please feel free to send us an email at wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.